It's episode 8 of the Football Fun Factory podcast today, and what an enjoyable start to our podcasting career it's been, discussing all things youth football with the Football Fun Factory co-founders James Cutting and Jonny Martin, two real experts and pioneers of coaching children's football. Maybe a little more challenging for me in the early weeks, having to get dressed up in the judge's outfit, where I'm finding the wig is getting itchier and itchier every week on my poor head. But you've got to do what you've got to do when putting important subjects on trial in Chaddy's court, I suppose. In this week's episode, we will be discussing the old carrot and the stick scenario. We've all been there, right? Within a session, when the kids aren't behaving how we'd like them to, and we've given the old, we won't play a match unless you start behaving, or something similar. I know I have in my early coaching days. But that's not right, is it? Surely the behaviour of the group comes from the environment we have built as coaches, and we shouldn't have to use persuasion tactics to engage the kids. Jonny, without trying to inflate your ego, you're up there with the best children's football coaches I've seen. Can't imagine you've ever used the old carrot and stick, have you?
First of all, thank you very much, Chad. Really appreciate it, mate. I probably did when I first started. I think just because when I played, the coaches would probably use that with me, and they would say, if you don't, to the group, if you don't start behaving, we're not going to play a game at the end. So I think you almost conform to your early experiences. So I think I probably did do that when I first started, until I sort of got educated on the benefits of match play and stuff like that. But what about you, JC?
Yeah, I think there's probably scenarios where my early coaching days where I definitely did that, again, because of my experience of hearing that from the coaches that work with me. I think that there's so many positive ways in which we can reframe things, but keen not to get too into the discussion, because I know we'll have an absolutely brilliant chat about that later on and how we do things at Football Fun Factory in particular.
Okie dokie, why don't we put it on trial? Okie dokie, we're back in Chaddy's court. I've got on my wig, my judge's outfit, and we are ready to put this subject on trial. James, Jonny, I've got two contrasting views.
You just said James and looked at Jonny, and then said Jonny and looked at James, but that's fine.
Let's go.
I'm James.
And you are Jonny. Okay, so we've got two contrasting views. I'd like you to read them out. Let us know what they are, then I'm going to give you the opportunity to have an opening statement, and then the other person, Jonny or James, will question you. Go on then, Jonny, you can go first.
Children need positive praise and encouragement, and coaches should create a relaxed and pressure-free environment. 100% carrot and not the stick.
Disagree. Children need to be put in their place. Discipline is the only measure to get them to perform as they should. Never the carrot, always the stick.
Interesting stuff, guys. Okay, Jonny, can you give your opening statement? And James, you're going to have the opportunity to question Jonny on this.
I think it's pretty obvious that I will be the winner of this Chaddy's court, because children do need positive praise and encouragement. Coaches should, without doubt, boost them up, create an environment where they absolutely love playing, where they're free from any pressure or external pressure that's put on them. And we should always try and use the carrot, not the stick. I mean, there's nothing really for me to say than the obvious.
All children have various motives for playing football, or intentions, and parents obviously take their children along to take part in children's football. Some wish to progress their football, develop, and become a professional football player in the past, like Sir Judge. And and I feel that could get missed. The opportunities could get missed. The national game is at threat with this approach, Jonny. If we're always using the carrot, making this fun, relaxed, pressure-free environment that you talk about, how on earth are we going to identify and develop talent for the English game? We want to win the Euros in the summer. We want to go on to win World Cups in the future. How are we going to do that if all we do is dangle a carrot?
Very good. James, do you want to question? I didn't know. You should have been questioning Jonny.
Yeah, I was questioning Jonny.
Oh, you not actually asked him a question. I thought you were doing.
How are we going to do that? Oh, dangle a carrot? Question mark.
Okay, carry on, Jonny.
You need to say your question marks, otherwise.
Sorry, I didn't punctuate.
I mean, so many players at the highest level have told stories about how they've got through having had a complete pressure-free sort of experience as a child. I mean, Sir Judge, as we referred to him earlier, remembers his childhood football memories where he was running around with the coaches, creating this pressure-free environment. He was scoring 17 goals a game like Ronaldinho was and having the best time of his life.
So that's great. Jonny, next question. Have you heard of the Sir Alex Ferguson hairdryer treatment?
I have, but that wasn't towards a child, I hope.
So, look, I'm right in thinking that Sir Alex back in the day would know each of the academy, graduates and all the children coming through the academy by name. He would welcome you as you walked into the canteen. He would say, "Hi, Luke," even before you became a professional football player.
Yeah, without a doubt, he built them relationships with everyone at the club from a really early age. I'm not sure where this is going, because if it is around him then shouting, "There won't be a game unless you start behaving," you're really mistaken on this one.
Okay. I just feel that there's so many opportunities for children to go and become a pro. There's a huge career in the game. There's vast sums of money to be earned, and if we don't give them the stick, they need a whack every now and again with the stick. A metaphorical whack. They need incentive, and the carrot doesn't work with everyone. I think that's a better point that I'll now go to. That actually,
it's too late. You said everyone needs a whack.
I'll take that back. Edit that out, Ollie. If you treat every single child the same, so therefore there's a child within the session causing havoc. If the only way is the carrot, and that doesn't make an intervention, doesn't develop that environment that you're looking for the children, is that not a threat to the enjoyment of the session, therefore their lifelong participation within the game?
I think there are other behaviour management techniques and coaching techniques beyond whacking the stick, the figurative stick, towards the children, and I think 100% you'll gain so much more enjoyment and development by using praise and encouragement in the children that you coach. And then if you do have to change your approach slightly, the stick is definitely not the answer, and there are a number of other techniques that you can use. Okay,
I'm going to hold it there. James, do you want to give your opening statement, please?
Absolutely. So, I've listened to a number of different high-profile footballers recently talk about their upbringing and talk about how they made it to the very top. So I listened to a brilliant podcast recently on another popular podcast with Stephen Bartlett. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's up there in the charts with us.
Sure.
And on that podcast, Thierry Henry talked about his upbringing, how tough it was, and how he made it to the very top. But actually, it was a really tough kind of upbringing that got him there. He talked about his father a lot and the coaches that he had. And he very much had the stick rather than the carrot in terms of that pressure. And that's what made him get to the top. I watched the recent Netflix documentary with one of your former teammates, David Beckham, Luke. Yeah. And he talked a lot about his dad and his upbringing, his coaches, and how they, including Sir Alex, helped him get to the very top. And he famously kicked a boot that landed and cut his eye, if you know about that. But it was very much the stick that helped him get to the top. Two shining examples of the game, two shining examples of how children can open up opportunities, go on to become a professional footballer. In my opinion, and it is my opinion, that the stick should always be used and never the carrot, because if not, we're just too soft. We haven't won the World Cup since 1966, and I do not think we'll win it until something changes.
Till it's just stick.
Always stick.
Do you have any questions?
Cool. So obviously with the two shining examples that you've explained, I think both of those were probably more stick from their parents as opposed to their coaches. And I think their coaches, if you look back at their stories, probably played a part in creating a positive environment for them when they came to training. So I think that's key to differentiate, easy for me to say, the parent and the coaches. Obviously in your statement. I think the other sort of question I've got to you is, obviously with the amount of children going on to play in the Premier League, being so low, 0.012% of children that obviously go on to be at that very highest level, let alone the heights of David Beckham and Thierry Henry, what happens to the rest of the kids?
Well, the reason there's so many of them is because there's coaches like you, John, out there creating these fun environments, making it all la-di-da for these kids, turning up to these training sessions, relaxed, pressure-free, be creative, try a step over and all those kind of things. And what's happening is they just come out of the end of that and there's just no talent level. And what we're finding is that children are coming through, they're getting to 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. There's a huge drop-off in children playing football. So for me, the reason... Because of the carrot, John. It's all because of the carrot. And what's happening is the carrot is ruining the game.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Interesting debate. I think we know who the winner of today's debate is. Congratulations, Jonny Martin.
Thanks very much.
Interesting debate, guys. James, big fan of the stick. Jonny, more of a carrot kind of guy. But what are we really thinking about this subject? James, I'm going to give you a chance to come back from your opinion.
To redeem myself.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, I feel that we have to create a positive environment for children. I mean, of course we do. I guess it depends on what the carrot and what the stick are. So it's how you frame things. And there's even ways in which you can incorporate the stick within the carrot, if that makes sense. But
it makes no sense whatsoever.
It does, Luke.
Got to carry on.
So I think it's probably worth, Jonny, you explaining a little bit more. You head up delivery here at Football Fun Factory, just about word swaps and phrase swaps, because I think for any football coach watching now, I think there's an opportunity of how we reframe stuff. The same message delivered in a different way is so crucial to how we coach football.
Yeah. So we've got obviously a safety, fun and development checklist. And part of the fun checklist, one big feature of that is positive word swaps and phrases. So we'll use it throughout our whole session to create a really positive environment, but to still get the outcome that we want. So a good example of that is if you've got a session, an area that you're working within, rather than it just being an area, instead giving it a name, like a stadium name, so the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
No one's want to play there, John.
And if a child then dribbles outside of the area, rather than you shouting at them and saying, come back in here, you're outside the area, stop leaving the area, the positive word swap would be, everyone inside the stadium, all the fans are calling your name back in, James, over you come. And then suddenly it just creates the same message, the same sort of outcome that you want to get them to come back in the area, but delivered in a far more positive way. We use it as well when we're trying to get a group of children to sprint in, rather than saying don't be last, and then you always get one or two that walk in, bouncing the ball, want to be last, suddenly who can be first, and you see all the children sprint into your session. So two really simple examples, but two that work brilliantly for us at the Football Fun Factory.
The question I'd have is sort of as a sort of slightly older, not much that much older than you, James, a lot older than you, Jonny, but when we were, I assume it was the same for you guys, when we were brought up playing youth football, a lot of the time it was the stick in how coaching was back then. It was a demand style, do this, do that. Would that be fair to say that it's
I think so,
coaching's changed, and that's the biggest challenge of coaches that are now sort of from our era, that's how they were brought up and assume that's the way to coach children?
Yeah, I think without getting too, political and everything else, but the world's changed quite a lot just in the last 10, 15, 20 years, with like far more awareness around mental health and those types of things. And I think it's so important that coaches do or are open-minded to a new approach, and the fact that it has to be a new approach, because I think even when I was being coached, and although I'm not as old as you, obviously, Luke, if anyone watching, Luke just pulled a face. So I think, I was coached with it predominantly being the stick, and like we referenced sort of the point earlier on around we're not going to play a match until everyone's listening and behaving. But I think people probably aren't as thick-skinned as they used to be, and I think there are now more awareness around things like mental health, and I do think the times have changed. I do think coaches now, need to be open-minded to changing and to a different approach.
Do you think that's easy, James, to find them open-minded coaches? Because obviously it's completely right what you say, but probably easier said than done.
I think it's education like anything. So I think there's opportunities to educate your football coaches. I think it's probably more common now than we actually think. So we talk about in the past the stick was used a lot more. It was a lot more command style, and that was just the style of coaching. But I remember doing a session a few years ago now. But we went to local county football association, and I remember we referenced the phrase that we used at the start. If you don't listen, you won't get a game at the end. And the whole room kind of like went, oh, that's me. I say that. And I think that probably happens in grassroots football quite a lot. But from that day, from us mentioning that and saying, actually, instead, why don't you just say, if we listen really well, we'll get an extra 10 minutes game at the end, same message delivered in a completely different way. The whole room then went, oh, yeah, really obvious, really simple. But they took that one message and then went ahead and delivered it. And for me, that's education. So I think that whilst it's great going out onto the pitch and learning to coach and having your coaching points and all those kind of things that you can learn on coaching courses, sometimes actually just the way in which you phrase things, even the tone of voice that you use, those real simple measures and changes are what, for me, coach education is all about.
The stick is not really needed if the children are engaged. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. So what we do at our sessions is probably worth sharing. So we start with arrival matches where the children come in, they have the opportunity to play matches straight away. So they come to the session, often get there early because they're absolutely buzzing. In that first sort of arrival activity and when they're playing matches, they then have the opportunity to chat to their mates who they haven't seen all week, and they have the opportunity to talk about the football that happened on the weekend, and suddenly creates that environment which is really positive. It gets out some of the talking from your session when you then go into the more structured part because they've already done that. And then we go session game. So, and when I say game, I mean match. So it'll be so fast paced that the children will play a 10-15 minute session, then go into a 10-15 minute game. We never use the games and the matches as a, like you say, as a carrot or a stick. They know it's coming, they know it's part of their session, and actually the kids never ask about matches because they know they're playing it. We feature it loads into our session, so you almost don't need to do either or. Everyone's so engaged.
And the top tip as well for any football coaches is just how we control and manage footballs is one thing we talk about a lot. We do coaching observations, and it's one piece of feedback that we quite often give. Just if someone's got a ball, if I gave you a ball now, you'd bounce it, or you'd kick it, or you'd do something, throw it up in the air. We all would. And if you give it to a child, they're definitely going to do those things. If you control the footballs, it actually controls the whole session. And when you've got a group of 10, 12, 15 children, if you've got 15 footballs bouncing or 15 footballs up in the air or rolling off in the wind or whatever it might be, then actually that's going to really disrupt your session. So when we then sit down with those children, they're all bouncing their footballs, and we say, if you don't listen, guys, if you're not listening to me, we're not going to play a match at the end of this session, or we're not going to be able to do this or that game or that activity that you want to do. Instead, if we just all say, right, in we come, everyone tuck your ball under your arm. Everyone put the ball on your head. Like whatever we might do, controlling the footballs in those ways, sitting on the footballs, whatever it might be, those things are going to then control the footballs and actually avoid the whole conversation of needing to effectively discipline, because we're talking about creating an environment fun, friendly, and then we're talking about discipline. To avoid the discipline, it's actually within the coach's control. And I think it's really easy to go, oh, I've got this really naughty child in my sessions, he's really disruptive or whatever it might be. It's actually, well, how are you managing the session to make sure you're getting the best out of that child and the whole group?
So it sounds like the key is a plan, a structure, which isn't always possible. We talk about, obviously, our coaches, our sessions, what they look like. The coaches are, that's their job. They coach with the Football Fun Factory. That's what they do. They've got time to do that. With a number of grassroots coaches, they're often straight from work there, sometimes a bit heads up after they'd have had at work and maybe not as patient as they would be. What would be your advice, John, around that and getting a plan, a structure in place to avoid getting a stick out?
I think a lot of coaches probably think that they need to have a new plan every single week, and actually that consistency that we have within our sessions where we go arrival matches, session game every single week helps create that environment that we try and create, and we're talking about now at the Football Fun Factory, where the kids know what's happening. They almost don't know about they're not fearing the unknown. They know when they come in, they put their water bottles down, they get straight into matches. They know they've got a session, they know they've then got matches. I think a lot of grassroots coaches feel like they need to reinvent the wheel every week. And I know I did when I was coaching in grassroots. I'd spend all week looking at session plans, looking at ideas. Whereas actually now, if I were to go back to taking a team in grassroots, I'd probably have between 6 and 10 sessions that I delivered all the time. And that would be my go-to sessions. And I'd then just tweak rules within the session every single week, or maybe have different start points to get a different sort of topic out within what I'm working on in the children. I think that's probably one of my top tips to coaches is don't overcomplicate it. Have a plan that is consistent and try and have a framework that you work from every single week, or at least have a handful of sessions that you work from every single week. And then actually you don't need to worry about the planning, the detail that goes into the session. You can then just concentrate on creating the best environment for the children when you get there, making sure that you're ready to give everyone a warm welcome and kick your session off in the right way.
Fantastic. Top tips. And when John speaks about the environment there, Dan, can you give us a little bit on like what is a fantastic environment? What does that look like for children at a football session?
Yeah, I think when you first start playing football, so you go along to your first ever training session, or you join a team, or you join the Football Fun Factory, it's always quite a nerve-wracking experience. Any new group, whether it's a football session or actually going to a new school, starting a new class, whatever it might be. So first and foremost, it has to be an environment that children feel incredibly confident and capable and comfortable within. So once then the coach does that, I think the way in which we do that at FFF is the warm welcome, we call it. And that warm welcome is eye contact as children come in through the AstroTurf gate. It's asking them about their day. It's speaking to their parents. It's making sure we give them a voice if they've got any questions. And it's making sure that that child feels like $1 million. That in the same way that an academy may make a certain child because they think he's going to be the one that comes through and signs the professional contract, and it's like making that child feel like the one kind of thing. It's making every child feel like the one. It's making every single child buzz off coming to their football session every single week, and then doing that with the collective by being the fun coach, but then making sure you've got that balance between being fun and engaging and being in control. Because we know within our programs that parents actually like discipline, if we can use that word, but discipline doesn't have to be the stick. So discipline can just be making sure, like you said, that the children know that there's consistent boundaries. What we do here is we come in and we put our water bottle down in this zone. What we do is we then go into games. We then put a bib on. We choose between yellow and blue. And that consistency and repetition of the structure blends itself into creating that environment. So the environment ends up being really, really fun, and it is disciplined, but discipline doesn't have to be a negative thing. Discipline can actually be a real positive, I think.
Fantastic stuff. Okay, so I'm going to end up this chat now. Johnny, one word, carrot or the stick?
Carrot.
Stick. No. Yeah, 100% carrot. 100% has to be the carrot. And I think that the biggest thing for me is education in terms of how we can use the carrot to get the best out of the children and the best out of the experience. There's my one word.
Yeah, thanks for that. Okie dokie, let's have a few listeners' questions. Okie dokie, I've got a couple of questions this week. The first one I'm going to give to James. Interesting one. What does the FFF have planned for 2024?
2024 is all about growth of the brand, growth of the franchise network that we operate, heading into international waters, which is really, really exciting. The reason why we want to keep growing is because we have a mission to become the world's leading children's football coaching organisation. And the route to that mission is finding passionate football coaches that are going to open up the Football Fun Factory where they live within their local community. It's been rolled out now 80 times within the United Kingdom and Ireland, and we're really excited about doing that moving forwards. I know that you, Luke, have been on calls with lots and lots and lots of football coaches, days filled up, diary filled up with passionate football coaches on Zoom calls. We've got a coaching observation tonight, so it looks like more people coming into the organisation and spreading our wings into new areas. But ultimately, all of that drives all the stuff that we talk about on this podcast, which is fantastic experiences for children to fall in love with the game.
Great answer.
Thanks,
exciting times. Johnny, Not sure what this question's saying about the three of us, but any special guests lined up for the podcast this year?
Well, are we not enough people?
That's what it sounds like.
Well, obviously, Chaddy, you played with some pretty big names. Go on, give us a few.
We're trying to get David Beckham on, but we've not had an answer from his PA yet, so we're not sure on that one.
Yeah, so look, I think there is the future. We're open to having guests on the podcast to freshen stuff up and to maybe get someone else wearing that wig for a special episode. But at the moment, the plan is for us to continue and see what happens.
Who's your dream guest, John? Who would you have on if anything was
David
possible?
Beckham. Go on, Chaddy, pull a few strings.
I'll do my best. I'll be so happy for someone else to come in and wear that wig because it is so itchy. It's doing my head in. No pun intended. Okay, fantastic. Thanks, guys. Brilliant episode. Thank you for listening or watching, and we'll see you again real soon.